Magdalene. Me and David are from URSIP in the University of Huddersfield in the UK. So without further ado, Mark gave a very good introduction to what high stakes conditions are. And basically, recently that has... So of recent, there has been a realization that we need more ecologically valid data. That what this means, that it's not simulated in a lab or by student actors and so forth. So this sparked a small pool of studies to date, and the notion is that the higher the stakes, the higher the chance of more reliable deception cues that will appear. And this highlights the importance of context-specific research where cues may only emerge in those contexts. So what is television appeals? Well, I will play you this if I can. This video. I don't know where the mic. And Sophie, can you... Oh. There it is, but we can't really hear anything. Basically, he's just saying that he misses his fiancée, Rachel, and that if she can come back or call anyone, the police or himself, to do so. I'm going to stop that because you can't really hear that. So, just judging from the video, does anyone want to make guesses whether this guy is guilty in the disappearance of his fiancée? And does anyone want to take a guess? Yeah. Okay. So he is guilty. He murdered his wife, his fiancée actually, a day after he proposed to her. So that is a new meaning to cold feet. So reactions post-loss has never been studied in these TV appeals. So obviously, grief produces psychological, emotional, and social changes within a person, and this, in turn, manifests in their language, and also their emotional reactions, their relationships within their family, society, etc. So obviously, this will affect the language that they use to speak, which we think that would hopefully underline their foremost anxieties and concern. So literature on reactions post-loss has never really been paralleled in reference to these TV appeals, and they hold a vast potential for comparison and association. So what we did was we took 39 of these TV appeals from all around the world. Some we had to cut from our research study because they were too short. And they were all showing individuals who were appealing during the press conference for the return of their relative. So we found I transcribed 33 verbal cues, and I postulated a list of categorical descriptions of these verbal variables from literature. And they were from UK, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. 18 of them were female and 21 of them were male. Okay. So I've made it into a nice little box for you to see there, and I've sort of divided them into 8 categories. The first one you can see there. I don't know if my pointer is working or not. Yeah? Okay. So the first one is victim-centered. It's quite straightforward. So imagine is the appeal. Keep in mind, these are all verbalized variables, so the appealers actually said this during their appeals. Vic imagine is, for example, I wonder what Sally is doing at the moment, is she okay, so on and so forth. Vic traits is the traits of the victims. Vic name, keeping count is, it's been 23 days since Sally has been taken away from us. Self-center is quite straightforward as well. Conditional, so you're setting a condition upon the return of your loved ones. So you use conjunctions such as if or but in the sentence where you want them to come home. I didn't do it, somebody can't help, somebody's scared, I don't know. I won't go through all of these. chronology is they actually said that they were present at the event. Event ref, they actually referred back to the event. Social, religion, communal. Movement, this is my favorite one. So activity, here they're using words that are action words. They're actually moving the investigation, the appeal forward by using action words such as search, forward, moving. Passivity is sort of the opposite. They're not really using any of these action words, but they may say things like, I am sad that Gary has been taken away from us. Direct killer, they are pleading directly to the killer. Direct vic, they're pleading directly to the vic. Bargaining, so they're bargaining with the abductor or the killer for the return of their loved ones, or to if they could tell them where the body is, for example, if they have been murdered. So all of the others are quite self-explanatory, so I'm going to skip. So ground truth, Mark mentioned it earlier a little bit. Basically, ground truth is whether you know for sure or not that the outcome of the case. And it's quite hard to establish, but here in our study, we use this. It's a table to show you what evidence type we use to establish ground truth. Okay, so analysis-wise, we use smaller space analysis, SSA. What is SSA? It reveals results that are not explicitly expressed in chi-square analysis sometimes. It works by transforming variables onto a spatial geometrical diagram through similarity indexing. So the null hypothesis is in this diagram, there won't be any clear relationship at all. We want there to be. So what it is representing and analyzing a group of variables, internal structure using the principle of parsimony, and this is really looking at the correlation between the variables as distances in a 3D space. So in the present case, this has never been done before. What I did was I put in genuine and false cases. So obviously you can't be genuine and false at the same time. So what I thought was variables that would highly co-occur with genuine variables would be attracted to the genuine region, and the variables that are going to be attracted to the false region are going to be they're going to be on the orthogonal side of the matrix. So this is what we had in mind when we did the study. So the correlation of coefficients will first be calculated between the variables, and they present a matrix, and that will be on the orthogonal matrix from the hypothesis that we're going into with. So the higher the co-occurrence, the more they will cluster together, and this is sort of the shape that we want, hopefully, that we will see. If there is a pattern, you would interpret it based on the constructs and the theories that you're going into. So you really want a low coefficient of alienation that is closer to 0. That shows that it would be a good fit. In the present case, it was 0.11 for genuine and 0.12 for the false appealers. So as said before, the hypothesis is that certain variables will co-occur in the region of genuine appealers, and others will be attracted to false appealers. Yep. So this is the SSA solution. I hope you can see that. So right away, from the get-go, you can see that there's a lot more variables. My pointer is not working. There's a lot more variables on the genuine region. Actually, that's 2/3 of the variable out of the 33 variables, and there's only 1/3 on the false side, which is very interesting in and of itself. You can see very quickly that they are, in the genuine region, they are more victim-centered rather than in the false region where it's very self-centered, which I will go into shortly. What can I say about that? Okay, so I said that all. already. So content-wise, for genuine appealers, what we can see is that, like I said, they're more victim-centered. You can see that they're mentioning vic name, vic trait, keep count, vic imagine, emotions, so this vic present tense, bargaining. So a lot to do with the victim. You can see there. They also mention emotional reserve or release. They do mention emotions and sometimes emotional lability. So I don't feel anything, for example. I can't feel anything. I've lost all sense of feelings, for example. But nevertheless, they do state this. So it's easy for them. Behavioral-wise, they may or may not cry, but they're actually saying that they feel pain or they feel harrowing sorrow or whatever it is that they're feeling. They also have a very big social component. The relationship, family unit, the communality, police. So they have this sense of, they actually state in their appeals this sense of social aspect. Movement, very active in their appeals. They're moving it forward. They want the victims to be found. And they also use present tense regarding the victim. Not the whole appeal, but just regarding the victim. What about the false appealer? So they are more self-centered. As you can see here, I don't know, I didn't do it, somebody must be running scared. So the agency is pushed away from themselves. They also lack emotions. So they may cry again, but they're not saying that they're not saying anything to do with emotions. It's completely zero. So they also lack a social feature. They're not talking to the community. They're not saying, if you know anything, please come forward. Not much anyway. And they're very passive. Mind you, a lot of the genuine appealers are also going to be passive. Passive doesn't mean anything negative. It just means that they are not using action words. They may still be sad. They may still say that I miss Larry or Gary. But they're not using action words, so keeping that in mind. So the structure-wise, false appealers actually lack a general structure. So as you can see here before, I said that there's a lot more variables on the genuine side. So when we take a look at ignore that far right table, the variables showing a frequency of higher than 50% in genuine appeals, there's 4. But on the other hand, there's only 1 for false appealers. The variables that occur a frequency of higher than 50% in genuine appeals, big present tense, relationship, communality, and they're passive. So bearing in mind that a lot of true appealers are also passive, the only variable that shows a frequency of higher than 50% in false appealers is passive. So they don't do anything else above 50% of frequency rather than to remain passive. So this is quite telling. I think it's quite interesting. And the variable with the least frequency difference for genuine and deceptive appealers is love. So you can say that you love someone, but it might not mean anything. That's kind of what I was trying to say. So we also did a chi-square to back up this SSA, and those are the cues that were significant for honest appeals, communality, emotions, pain, activity, religion, hope, victim, present tense. For deception, it was passivity, event reference, I didn't do it, conditional. Conditional meaning they set a condition to the return of the victim, and that they actually mention that they're present at the event. So don't mention it if you are a false appealer. So discussion-wise, so in malingering, you're feigning a mental disorder. Similarly to malingering, a person who has never actually gone through bereavement has to fake grieving. So even if they successfully feign emotions in like crying or in heavy breathing, for example, their speech is quite telling. And here we found that false appealers, they actually didn't say any emotions at all. So Makijewski found that contrary to depressive mood or episode, yearning appear to be the most frequent negative psychological response post-loss of a beloved. This is missing from false appealers as well, and they don't yearn for the victim. And you can see from the SSA that the true appealers, they will actually yearn, they imagine the victim, but false appealers don't. And this underlying cognitive state of the appealers at the time of the appeal are very revealing. It shows that genuine victims are very victim-oriented, where bringing the victim home is at the foremost of their concerns. Whereas in deceptive appeals, it's very removing the agency from themselves. They shift the blames, they use distancing language, and they deny involvement, and it's very self-oriented. So the study contributes to high-stakes lie detection, and by presenting some new cues from a different angle, and perhaps a very context-specific scenario. So that comes to the end of my presentation.